And welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Life and Legacy Show, sponsored by the Sechler Law Firm, where great families make great estate plans. My name is Tim Sechler. I own the Sechler Law Firm, and we are a law firm dedicated to helping people prepare quality estate plans, wills, trust, powers of attorney. We help families dealing with the loss of a loved one and all the legal hoops that our government system makes you jump through. And then we also do what we call nursing home elder law crisis planning, which is if somebody needs long-term care, we help them find, get, and pay for that care, hopefully without going broke in the process. So a big part of what we do is help people protect their hard-earned savings so that they can leave a legacy to their family rather than losing it all to a battle with long-term care. And if you're listening to this show live, it is the 4th of July weekend, 2022, and we are all out celebrating or on your way maybe to a picnic or a party, celebrating Independence Day. You know, we Americans are a proud bunch. We value our independence. We value our ability to move about and do pretty much as we wish within the confines of some parameters. And you know, this is an interesting thing to discuss, our love of our independence and how we have the ability to plan and make decisions independently of what others think, and we have the ability largely to make decisions in our own best interest. When it comes to this estate planning stuff, that requires a little bit of education, and that requires a little bit of contemplation on how I want this thing to go, and that's why we do this radio show. We do this radio show to educate people on the different concerns that they may want to be thinking about, the different options that they can use to plan well for their families, to protect themselves, protect their treasure, protect their home, without going broke due to unnecessary legal fees, taxes, long-term care expenses, and other issues that are out there trying to get you. So then the question becomes, you know, who are the people, who are the entities, who are the organizations that are trying to take our stuff? And there is this sentiment amongst a lot of my clients that they are concerned about the way the economy is going. They're upset about the way that they see certain things occurring, and their concern is that it is there a chance I'm going to lose everything that I've worked for, right? There's this sense, I don't know if you feel it, but there's this sense of sort of concern out there. I was talking with my own father recently, and he said, you know, I think people are worried. I think people are nervous. I think people are nervous about their portfolios. I think people are nervous about whether the retirement they have been thinking about is really going to come true. And you know, and we started talking about, well, what can you do? And so I thought maybe I'd share some of those thoughts with you, because it seems to me that the time to plan is while you still have your independence of thought. All right. Now, if we're talking about retirees and seniors, the Alzheimer's Association tells us that 1 in 3 seniors will die with dementia. 1 in 3 seniors will die with dementia, which obviously dementia results in the eventual lapse of capacity or lapse in quality decision making, the ability to think freely for yourself and make great decisions. And so if you're listening to this and this is a concern of yours, I implore you, as a person who deals with families dealing with long-term care issues, stroke patients, people with traumatic brain injuries, people with dementia, don't assume that you will always have your independence of thought. Things happen, healthcare events happen, accidents happen, and the key is to make these decisions, to put a plan in place for your family while you're feeling well and still have your independence of thought. And so don't put this stuff off. Think about it. The time is now to put a plan in place, because we don't know that we can do it later. And I implore you, don't end up in my office as a family who did not think about this stuff and are now dealing with a crisis that they're ill-equipped to manage. And so in our office, we are an education first law firm. We do this radio show. If you go to my website at sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com, you're going to find helpful videos and articles. There's dozens and dozens of articles on these issues, the subject matter on how to protect yourself and your family from these expenses. And I can tell you the number one issue causing retirees problems, financially speaking, is long-term care. The number one estate planning mistake, without hesitation, that families are making when not in doing their estate planning or not doing their estate planning is the failure to plan for what happens if I get sick. If you go to certain estate planners, if you print off an estate plan off the internet, most estate planners, most attorneys are concerned when it comes to estate planning about answering the question, what happens with my things when I pass away? That assumes there are still going to be things when you pass away. But here's the truth. Nursing homes in Pennsylvania cost almost $180,000 a year on average, and 1 in 3 of us are going to have dementia. And so what's happening to families is far too many families are going broke. Bill and Jane work their entire lives to save some money. They get to retirement, and then Bill ends up with the Alzheimer's disease, like 1 in 3 of us are going to have. And we end up in a care situation where we're going through $180,000 a year, and now Jane's in trouble. And please think this through. Please don't let this happen to you, because here's the way that the rules work. It's worse than you think. I still meet people who assume every time that if they get sick, that their Medicare insurance is going to pay for the nursing home. Folks, Medicare does not pay for custodial long-term care. It just doesn't. You are on your own. And so then it's only a couple of things that you can do. One is you can buy long-term care insurance, which could be a great idea depending on your facts and your finances, but most people don't buy long-term care insurance. The traditional policies aren't even available anymore. There's these hybrid policies out there, which can be nice, but most people still don't pay for it. So then the default rule is you go broke until you end up on Medicaid. But here's the thing about Medicaid. There was recently an article in the Post Gazette that they were interviewing some nursing home owners, and these nursing homes are struggling to meet the bills on Medicaid, but still fully 70% of their residents are on Medicaid. 70%. And so if you think about that, and how many families end up in a nursing home, and how many, it's probably happened in your own family and your neighbor's family. If people are ending up in nursing homes and 70% of them are on Medicaid, that means 70% of these people essentially went broke and then went on Medicaid. And so how do we get the care that we need? How do we get the care that we need without going broke? How do we access Medicaid programs without going broke? And this is a key to understanding how you and your spouse can continue to live independently, because once you are on Medicaid benefits, you've essentially gone through all of your money. They only allow you to keep your house and a car if you're a single person. You can keep your house and a car and up to $8,000. But wait a second, I've got $8,000. Who's paying the property taxes year 1, year 2? Who's insuring this house? Who's mowing the grass? Who's insuring this car that doesn't have any gas in it? How am I living independently if I'm out of money? Then they take all my monthly income. So if I have a pension or if I have Social Security, I have to spend all of that money on my long-term care, with the exception of, in Pennsylvania, they allow you to keep $45 per month from all of your income. $45, $1.50 a day. This is how we're treating seniors in the most independent country in the world. Is we're taking all their money, and then we're only allowing them to keep $1.50 a day for their personal needs in a nursing home. This just doesn't add up to me. And believe me, if you worked in my office, it seems to me that if I worked in a dentist's office and I was watching the problems that people come into a dentist's office with, it seems to me that I would probably brush and floss like 9 times a day, right? Because I don't want to have those problems. And I can assure you that if you worked in my office and you were watching a half a dozen families a month come in, going through $12,000, $15,000 every month to a nursing home, you would do asset protection planning. You would position yourselves to be in a situation that if I get sick or if my spouse gets sick, we're not going to go broke. And what does that look like? Well, like I was just alluding to a bit ago, Medicaid is a needs-based program, right? So if you go into a nursing home with money, then they make you spend all your money and become broke, and then they'll start paying for your bills. But what if I want them to pay for my bills and I don't want to go entirely broke, right? I reject this system. I choose for my family more independence than that. Well, that's elder law planning. That's what our workshop is about. And you should, while we're talking about the workshop, you should come to the workshop. You can find the dates on my website at sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com, or you can find out about them by calling 724-546-4227. I'll do that again, 724-546-4227, or go to sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com. And while you're there, go to the workshops page, find the date. We have them in the community, we have them in our office. Register for one of the upcoming workshops and come and learn all about Medicaid and how it works in greater detail. We talk about death taxes, capital gains tax, Pennsylvania's inheritance tax. We talk about wills versus trusts, revocable trust versus irrevocable trust, all of the different things that you would need to know to make good decisions for your family. So you can find that anytime on our website. Now, here's the thing. It seems to me that what most retirees want to do, most retirees with their estate plan, what they want to do is they want to be savvy about taxes. They want to make it easy for the kids. They'd prefer to not lose it all to a nursing home. And this is the big one. They want to maintain control. I want to be in charge. It's my money, right? But the problem is most people kind of know that if you go to a nursing home, you had better be broke before you get there, because the state's rules make you go broke once you get there, and then we've lost everything. And so most people know, they don't know the rules in detail, but they kind of know, hey, you better be broke before you go there. And then so for decades, what people have done is they start transferring assets to their kids, right? I'm going to put my house in my kid's name. I'm going to put money in my kid's name. Should I just put the kid's name on everything? And in my opinion, that's a confusing question, and it's not as simple as you think. There's a couple of risks. If you would put your house in your kid's name, one, you probably made a capital gains tax mistake. So, if I sold my primary residence, let's say I bought my house 40 years ago and I paid $50,000 for it, and today it's worth $250,000. If I sold it, there's a $200,000 gain, but because it's my house, I don't have to pay the capital gains tax on that $200,000 gain, which could be $40,000 tax. And so, but if I take and put my house into my child's name, and then we need to sell the house at some point in time in the future, and it's not my child's primary residence, that's no longer exempt from capital gains tax, and we just made a $40,000 tax mistake, right? So before you sort of latch on to this, this common knowledge that it's a great idea to put your house in your kid's name, be very, very careful about this, because one, it's a capital gains tax mistake. Second, it can cause big, big problems if you get sick in the short term. Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. And if you need to go to the nursing home and you have made transfers of significant assets in the last 5 years, they deny you eligibility to pay for the nursing home for a period of time that could last years, depending on the value of the house you gave away. And so it's pretty risky business there. And that risk is related to the third risk. That is, you just gave up control. If I put my house in my kids' names, I might, if everything works out and the stars align and the facts work out where I can stay healthy for a while, I might have protected that house from potential long-term care expenses. But in doing so, I have now given up control over the decision-making on that house. What happens if I put my house in my kid's name and then my kid and I have a falling out? Could he evict me from my own house? What happens if I put my house in my kid's name and my kid goes through a divorce? Did I just lose my house to my kid's poor marital decisions? What happens if I put my house in my kid's name and my kid dies before me? Now I'm living in a house owned by my former son-in-law. What happens when he remarries? Where am I going to live? What does my former son-in-law's new spouse think about me in this house that they have? What happens? You could go on and on. What happens if my kid gets laid off? What happens if my kid starts drinking too much? What happens if my kid starts gambling too much? What happens if my kid dies before me? And even if he writes a will leaving me my own house, now I'm paying inheritance tax, Pennsylvania's inheritance tax, on my own home. And this, what I call kitchen table planning, where people sit around around the kitchen table and figure out how they're going to beat the government at their own game. Almost never works out. It almost always doesn't work out because there are risks to this that you're not thinking about. So I've shared on this show before that I come from a family that lost a pile of money to this broken government rule book that requires you to go broke if you have dementia or some other long-term care need. My family lost a small fortune to this stupid system. And I am of the opinion that it does make sense to protect yourself because I'm meeting families each and every week in my office who are going through 10, 12, 14, $15,000 a month paying for the nursing home. So, yes, it makes sense. But giving the house to the kids is not the right answer. Long-term care insurance may be the right answer, but most people don't buy it because of the premium dollars. I happen to think that what most middle-class Americans should consider, I'm not saying everybody should do this, I'm saying you should consider this, is does it make sense to put some money to put my house into an asset protection trust? So let's talk about an asset protection trust. And this, by the way, is the a thing you're going to learn a lot about if you come to one of our upcoming estate planning workshops. You can find out all about them at sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com. We have them right in our office in Cranberry Township. We have them elsewhere around Pittsburgh from time to time, but there's almost always one scheduled in our office, and you can come and you can learn about this stuff. You can learn about wills. You can learn about trusts. I'm going to talk to you about one in particular here in a second. You can learn about death taxes. You can learn more details about how the nursing home Medicaid eligibility rules work. We teach you all of that because I think you need to know all of that before you can make a decision on how to protect yourself. And so one of the tools that a lot of our clients end up using is a trust that is designed to protect assets from long-term care expenses. So let's talk about what a trust is to begin with. See, people hear this word trust and they think, "Oh, that's what rich people do. That's only if you have big tax problems." And no, that's not really true. Think of a trust. A trust in its core is just a contract. You draw up a paperwork, and I, as the grantor, the creator of the trust, sign the paperwork, giving authority to a certain person called a trustee to manage assets for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now, the name of the game, and so once you sign this paperwork, this trust now exists, this legal arrangement now exists, and then you can assign interest and assets to it. I can put my house subject to the terms of this trust. I can put some money subject to the terms of this trust. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm essentially giving the authority for the trustee to manage the funds for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now, here's a couple of key concepts. One, the trustee is the person who has a lot of control. The beneficiaries are the people who can have access to the assets. A second concept is if I go to a nursing home, anything I have access to, the nursing home system also has access to, meaning Medicaid will require me to use any funds that I have available to me that I can access. I have to take those funds and spend them on care before I'm eligible for Medicaid benefits. That could be my retirement account. That could be cash value of my life insurance. That could be a second piece of real estate. That could be my grandpa's hunting camp. It could be a second car. I'm not allowed to own any of those things and be eligible for Medicaid. So what happens is I have to sell those things off, convert them into cash dollars. Then those cash dollars are paid for my nursing home expense at the rate of $15,000 a month until I run out of money. Then I become eligible for Medicaid. Okay. But if instead I don't have access to all of those dollars, if I take some of the things, and a big one is the primary residence. If you have a house, let's say somebody has a house that's worth $200,000 and that person is not planning on accessing the equity in the house, meaning I'm not going to borrow against it to pay for groceries. I've got a retirement account. I've got a pension. I've got income. I don't need the home equity to live my retirement lifestyle. Then that house might be a great asset to hold in a trust, because then once I put it in the trust, I'm not a beneficiary of this trust. Okay. I can no longer own the house again. Now, I could sleep there every night, and I can make certain decisions about home repairs, and I can make decisions about when the house is sold, and I can pretty much go back to normal living in this house every day. But I don't technically own it anymore, and I'm never allowed to own it again. So I've given up access to the equity of that home. I can sleep there like a tenant, but I cannot own it again. And by giving up access to those dollars, I can't get them anymore. And so then they're no longer available for nursing home expenses. And I could put a life insurance contract into this trust. I can no longer access the cash value, and I wasn't planning on it anyhow. The life insurance contract I have is I own it for the death benefit that's going to pay out to my kids. I was never going to access the cash value anyhow. So if I put it into this trust, then the trust is there. I can no longer access the cash value, which means then later if I go to the nursing home, I can't get it. They can't get it. Right. So we use a Medicaid asset protection trust, which you can come to our workshop and learn all about, to deny ourselves access to assets that we don't need access to. And by doing that, some of these assets can be very, very valuable. And we have now protected them in the event I need long term care expenses. And this to me just makes a ton of sense because, one, as compared to the other option, which was giving the stuff to the kids, here I haven't given up control. It's still me who decides if the house sells. It's still me who could decide how the money in there is invested. I'm still in control, but I can't access them. Okay. And because I can't access those assets, they're no longer counted. Right. But I didn't subject the assets to the tax mistakes of giving the house to the kids, or I didn't subject the assets to my kids' issues like their potential future divorces or lawsuit issues or creditor issues. The assets are just going to sit in this trust for the rest of my life. And they're assets that I was never going to access. They're now protected for the benefit of the beneficiaries, which would typically be my children. And those assets are now sort of locked up so that I make sure that my family benefits from this rather than this broken government rule book that requires you to go broke. Okay. Now, once people understand these trusts, and once people understand that no, not every retired school teacher only needs a simple will, we need to think through this a little bit more. We need to think about, when I'm sitting down with a client, the question on my mind is, we've gone through their family background, we've gone through their finances, we've gone through their goals. What does a successful retirement look like to you? And my question is almost always, okay, what gets in your way? What are the things that could get in your way of having a successful retirement? And the biggest answer is always, well, what happens if one of us gets sick? What are the financial implications on my wife if I end up in a nursing home? And the answer to that is the financial ramifications can be pretty devastating. I could be down to $45 a month for all of my personal needs, and she's left with less money. And how is she going to enjoy retirement? How are we going to continue to have the independence to have the retirement that we planned for decades? How are we still going to do that if the government takes all my money because I have dementia? And, this proposition of if I get sick, they get all my money is just not something I'm okay with. And for a lot of my clients, once I educate them and once we talk about this, a lot of my clients aren't okay with this proposition either. No, I'm not going broke. And so I'm going to protect my spouse. I'm going to put my home, I'm going to put some money into a trust that says that the nursing home can't have it. The government system can't have it. And so I know my spouse has a home to live in for the rest of her life because she gets to live there. She just can't own it again. And it just makes sense. So if you want to learn more about how this stuff works, it's complicated. Don't rely on the stuff you read on the internet because this stuff varies state to state and even family to family. Your finances are different from your neighbor's finances. And so you need to work with somebody who does this full time. And I think the first step that you need to do is become educated. And you should come to one of our upcoming estate planning and elder law workshops where we talk about all of this stuff. It's given, the workshop is given by one of our lawyers, and you're going to be able to ask questions. Well, what about this? And I thought Medicaid did that. And tell me the thing about the taxes again. And you can get all the education you need to make the decisions that you need to make. And once you come to one of our estate planning and elder law workshops, we offer you a free consultation. So you can come to the free meeting. You sit down and we dig in on the things that you learned in a workshop and apply them to your specific fact pattern, your family, your finances, and just talk about whether this type of planning is right for you. You can learn more about these topics. You can learn more about the upcoming workshops by going to sechlerlawfirm.com. It's spelled Secler lawfirm.com, or you can give us a call at 724-546-4227. Sechlerlawfirm.com, or give us a call at 724-546-4227. 4227. So I hope this was educational. I hope that you make the decision to plan for your family while you still have the independence of thought, because too many people take that for granted. And I hope you have an awesome Independence Day. Celebrate that we live in the greatest country in the world. Yes, it has its flaws, but I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and you probably wouldn't either. Now, with regard to today's content, don't make legal or financial decisions based on what you heard on this or any other radio show. This is for your education and entertainment. This is not legal advice. If you want to know how to plan specifically for your family, you should give us a call. Come to one of our workshops. Find out more at sechlerlawfirm.com, SECHLER lawfirm.com. And I thank you for listening to this week's episode.